Today is the time to deal with those 4 exempt gods up there. But no, it's not 4. It's 5. Hey guys, MasakoX here. Since the Tournament of Power is coming to an end, eventually, I think it might be a good time to wrap up our Gods in Detail mini-series by looking at the remaining Gods of Destruction, except for Beerus, and see what is up with them, because not a lot has been talked about because they don't really have to do much. All they have to do is basically reconstruct the stadium and then look at how weak other people were and how lucky they were. We're not going to be talking about Beerus though, because we've already done that, and if you wish to find out what I had to say about that kitty, as well as his brother, you can check out the video in the description and up top. So let's start off with the cute and fluffy little Iwen from Universe 1. For a God of Destruction, we don't really know much about him from what we get from the official sources. And that's kind of weird because Universe 1 has the highest mortal level going. It is essentially the best universe in the Dragon world. I mean, there is some stuff from the official Dragon Ball Super website, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let's address the most obvious thing here. Let's look at its design. Does it look really familiar to you? Does it resemble a certain anime mascot from a certain other shonen series? Now, I'm pretty sure that this is just a little cheeky nod from the likes of Toyotaro and Toriyama, just a little fun reference that some people might not get but others might. But for the purposes of this discussion, let's just roll with the fact that it's just basically Kuribo, only with black fur. Kuribo in Japanese literally translates to chestnut person, which coincidentally is obviously a reference to what a Goomba is in Japanese. And chestnuts have very interesting connotations in many different cultures. The symbolic meaning of chestnuts deals primarily with prevention and foresight. This is key as we consider its roots in symbolism. Most primitive cultures, particularly nomadic groups, would honor such traits in a food. So here we derive the attribute of foresight and prevention within the symbolic meaning of chestnuts, because upon planning a journey or providing for the body, the chestnut fulfills the human need. In Christian mysticism, if you were to consume chestnuts, it would provide you with a long-lasting life and good health, especially when you actually include chestnuts in natural remedies. Because of the traits of foresight and prevention and longevity, chestnut tree branches were actually included in the staffs of Celtic druids. Chestnuts are also considered as a symbol of harvest, prevention, and abundance. It all serves a message for everyone around to just prepare for tough times ahead, and chestnuts have got your back, at least nutritionally and health-wise. This seems to actually really suit Iwen really well, because out of all of the Gods of Destruction, I feel like if I wanted to go out for a drink with someone or just go and chat with them on a casual basis, I feel I'd like to talk to Iwen. He's very easygoing, he's very chilled, and he's also one of the Gods of Destruction who isn't particularly scared of the likes of Zeno. I'm completely assured that his universe would be long-lasting because of its mortal level. He knew the facts and basically represented chestnuts around the Omniverse. But the most interesting information comes from the Dragon Ball Super website, like I mentioned earlier. If you were to shave the fur off Iwen completely, what would you get underneath? Well, according to them, you would get something that would resemble Shiva from Hinduism. What? That's a pretty big claim. And why is that, Masako? Well, Shiva is one of the most significant deities in Hinduism. That's basically huge. Shiva is the supreme being of Shivaism, one of the most modern and contemporary variations of Hinduism today. The destroyer of evil within the Hinduism Trimurti. And what is the Trimurti? It's basically their equivalent of the Holy Trinity, you know, the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, or basically just Piccolo. Shiva is the supreme being who creates, transforms, and protects the universe. In terms of celestial beings, Shiva is right up there. And if that's not enough, Shiva also derives prosperity and longevity, so it connects with the chestnut thing. So if you had any doubts that Iwen might not be as powerful as you might think, if he's derived from Shiva in some shape or form as well as chestnuts, I think it's safe to say he's a powerful guy, and no wonder the mortal level was that high. But okay, let's just cut to the chase. The Gods of Destruction are based around alcoholic drinks, so let's just talk about Iwen. Obviously, it's wine. Wine alongside beer is one of the oldest drinks in human history, deriving back like thousands of years ago. And it's also a drink that has copious amounts of religious significance. Do I even need to talk about the blood of Christ, anyone? If you're not familiar with that, in the Eucharist in Christian tradition, Jesus' blood transforms into wine in an act known as transubstantiation. So in a way, it kind of fits Iwen's transformative properties if you were to get rid of the fur, or if he just powered up or something like that. I wonder if I'll actually ever see that in some shape or form in the manga. remains to be seen. Then we move on to Universe 5's Arack, who's probably one of the most mysterious gods of destruction in the entire show. Yes, so for all of you Pokemon fans out there, no, Arack is not just a Baltoy. I mean, he kind of is, but he's also kind of not. You see, Baltoy and Arack share the same inspiration in the form of the Shakoki Dogu. What are Dogu exactly, except for just a really cute thing you want to pet and take for walks? Well, it's essentially a representation of a clay doll about 10 to 30 centimeters high. Most of the figures that you would see are represented as female, usually have big eyes, small waists, as well as wide hips. In fact, if you really want to look at Digimon like Season 2, Shukakumon is basically a good example of this. The Dogu have large faces, small arms, and compact bodies, kind of like Arack here. But Masako, look at his face! It's really gross with the hair and the blue lips. It looks like he drowned or something. yeah, okay. Now this is where it's going to get a little bit dark here. I'm not going to really sugarcoat it. Arack's design is mostly based around shrunken heads. Similar to the Shikaki Dogu I mentioned, shrunken heads are supposed to actually hold destructive powers, and if you were to actually have one, it would protect you from vengeful spirits, like some kind of shield. So not only does it contain destructive powers, it also has the powers of preservation in a way. Since you know about shrunken heads, it also has a really bad story. Since the Western world discovered shrunken heads and basically they were all the rage and they wanted to have their very own, guess where they have to get the supply? So you could say that Arack is protecting his universe from his own destructive power. Like, he can barely contain it almost. So to sum Arack up, let's take a look at the etymology of the name, Arack. It can be spelled many different ways. But what it is essentially is an alcoholic beverage derived from grapes. It's similar to wine, but with a different twist. In a way, it's an umbrella term. Malay speakers would refer to any kind of alcohol as Arack, like how we would refer to most alcohol as booze. If you take the word into Arabic, Arack also means distillate, which is some kind of alcoholic drink, although a little bit more clinical. The Arabic version not only contains grapes, but also a hint of anise. Oh god, I hate anise. Ugh. Now here's where it gets tricky. If you change the spelling of that word, it can mean very different things. Unlike Arack, spelled A-R-A-K, if you were referring to A-R-R-A-C-K, you might be referring to a drink derived from the areca nut. That's a palm seed originating from India. And where did it suddenly become popular, Masako? Well, India? Naturally, it had to do with someone British, and that happened in 1838 from an enthusiast for alcohol known as Samuel Morwood. The term Arack being common in Eastern countries where the art of civilized life had been so easily cultivated, it is more reasonable to suppose that the Tatars received this word through their Eastern connections with the Chinese or other Oriental nations, than to attribute it to a derivation foreign to their language, or as generic term of their own. So yeah, basically what Morwood is saying is that instead of coming up with their own words for it, they're just going to take a word, spread it across different nationalities, but as time wore on and dialects evolved, the word subtly changed in different ways, so now it can mean different things, but it all comes from one place, and that place is booze. But it makes Arack a very interesting subject. Pokemon, shrunken heads, and booze? I don't think you'd actually hear those three words in the same sentence before, right? But now it's time to cover a god of destruction we haven't seen much of, and that's Liqiir. What is up with the Japanese and having many-tailed foxes? I think you can name round about 2 or 3 different fox-type characters off the top of your head that have made some kind of impact on those shows. And that is because foxes, or kitsune, are very intrinsic to Japanese culture. They are often represented as intelligent creatures with paranormal powers that only get better as age and wisdom progresses. They also have the ability to transform into humans, and are usually represented in Japanese folklore as being little scamps, tricksters, but at the same time they can be trusted companions for humans. And the more tails a kitsune has, the more powerful they have become. So if you look at Liqiir in different pictures, he's only got 3. What? Does that mean he's a recent god of destruction? Maybe he might grow more tails as his power increases. We haven't seen much of him in the Tournament of Power lately, but we know that he is somebody who can get behind the power of love of Universe 2, which kind of makes sense in a way, because of the whole companionship and trust of humanity and the whole prospect of love. There are even stories of fox and human marriages, but we're not going to go there today. As for its alcoholic origins, they are derived from the likes of distillate spirits, which are then laced with different types of flavors, and they can be basically whatever you want. It can be fruits, herbs, spices, cream, nuts. Liqueurs themselves are evolutions and descendants of herbal medicines from back in the 13th century. I can believe that because their thick consistency, they might have been medicine back in the day, and I can imagine like, oh, sorry about that. I've just got to take a dose of Cointreau before I go to bed. Yeah, my throat's a bit sore. Sadly though, that's it. There really isn't much to say about Liqiir other than the fact that he has come from Liqiir and he's basically a fox person. He's pretty plain as for a god of destruction. He's short and sweet, like the Liqiir. Next up is Geene, the god of destruction from the Black Lagoon. What is up with him exactly? Well, to understand what I think Geene might be, we need to look at his personality quirks, because in comparison to the other 4 exempt gods, he is very different. In fact, he's shown the most character out of all 4 of them. But his confident demeanor only comes from the anime and not the manga. But the fact that he refused to take part in the TOP arena test session shows that, he doesn't want to go with the crowd. It made him figure for something. And it also shows that he might be smarter than his divine colleagues. So as far as the anime goes, his major traits are cleverness, wisdom, and confidence. And this is going to my proposition of what he might come from. I propose that he is a dragon, and more specifically, Xiaolong. Xiaolong is a hornless scaled dragon who is often referred to as the leader of all aquatic animals. Take that, Aquaman. He has very different connotations to that of a European dragon. Most Europeans would think of a dragon as a horned creature that is aggressive and shoots fire and can only mean bad things. But in Chinese culture, it's quite the opposite. They are a spiritual and cultural symbol which represents prosperity and good luck. And in daily Chinese society, excellent people that show tremendous potential are likened to that of a dragon. They are portrayed as wise, noble creatures, which really fits Geene down to a T in a way. Because Universe 12 is second only to Universe 1 in terms of mortal level. And as for the alcoholic connection, well, that's easy. Gin. Ooh, I do love a good G&T. Gin itself is derived from juniper berries and has been known to be drunk from as early as the 13th century in England. And yeah, that's all you need to know. It's a wise old drink for a wise old god. So we did it. We managed to pinpoint the origins of the 4 exempt gods of destruction. But I remember, I hear you say, I talked about 5. Well, here comes a new challenger. So right off the bat, my biggest reference for Toppo is the pop culture thing, Jinpachi from the Tekken series. And when you include the demon form, it fits just even more. But who is Jinpachi exactly? Well, Jinpachi Mishima is the father of Heihachi Mishima and the former leader of the Mishima Zaibatsu, basically the family company. Unlike most of the Mishimas, Jinpachi is a wise, noble figure who had good personality traits. However, Jinpachi's life takes a turn for the worse when one of his former colleagues actually stabs him in the back, and he is then just thrown out and cast aside. Later on, he dies of starvation, but is soon resurrected by an unknown entity, and then takes on a demonic form and representation, but with tremendous power. An honorable fighter who then becomes bitter and twisted, and is then resurrected or given demonic powers. Does that sound familiar? Jinpachi himself, and by extension Toppo, are derived from Buddhism culture and that of the Vajrapani. Vajrapani is the eldest protective deity of that of the Buddha, and is often attributed to be so in many different types of iconography. He also can control most of the Buddha's powers. If you want to boil it down even more, Vajrapani is basically the ultimate bodyguard. And what do you think Toppo's been throughout the entire arc? Basically the bodyguard of Jiren. So there we go. Thank you so much for following Haverok and I on our journey to try and understand your local god of destruction. I wish that we can get some further development for the likes of Iwen, Arack, Liqiir and Geene, as well as Toppo in some ways and different references to come. Maybe in a special guide after Super ends, or maybe in the manga. Let's just hope that Toei will find a way to develop them somehow. So what do you guys think? Did you like this little mini-series? Do you think there's more to the gods than Haverok and I first thought? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, be sure to like and subscribe. Catch you later!